Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Black Professional Lobbyists Association Fireside Chat, where today we're going to be talking about state lobbying and those things that we can do to help with diversifying the lobbying core in state lobbying circles. And we have some very, very special guests today. We are so excited, and I'm going to let them tell you more about themselves, but certainly we have to start with the president-elect of the National Conference for Black State Legislators, Representative Billy Mitchell from Georgia. Representative Mitchell, welcome. Georgia is a busy state these days.
Absolutely so. And let me just first start off by saying what a pleasure it is to be here and a part of this panel. I just wish my grandmother was still around to see this. She would have thought that I went on and made something of myself with this distinguished panel and host. I'm so glad to be with you as a state representative in the state of Georgia, Georgia General Assembly, which is a swing state. As a matter of fact, we have Kamala Harris stopping by this afternoon and tomorrow. And I must say that I've been in the Georgia General Assembly 18 years. Prior to that, I was on my local city council after graduating from law school, and am the incoming president-elect of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, working with some incredible people like yourself, Yolanda. And so glad to be with you today.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. And listen, we have some unbelievable panelists here. I feel that once I retire, if I ever do get a chance to, that we will be in good hands in the lobbying corps. And one of those is certainly Tiffany Raspberry from New York. Tiffany is, as I read her bio, we had a kindred spirit, so many things we have in common. Tiffany, tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about your firm.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for having me be a part of this fireside chat, Yolanda. It's really an honor and a privilege. As you mentioned, my name is Tiffany Raspberry, and I am a lobbyist here based in New York City and New York State. I've been a registered lobbyist for the past 15 years, going on 16 years. And the political world in New York City, New York State, and throughout the country has changed dramatically in that time. When I first found myself on the steps of City Hall as a lobbyist, there was only one other woman who looked like us doing this job. And I think that she has joined us today to watch this forum. And now, there's so many of us enrolled as lobbyists in New York State that, everyone can't even make a top 50 list. And so I'm proud of the work that we've done to create opportunities and a pathway for young women and young people of color. I started out working in Congress for former Congressman Joseph Crowley from Queens on Capitol Hill straight out of college. Then I moved back to New York City, where I served in a number of capacities in local city government, including as chief of staff to, at the time, a former finance committee member. And then I went on to be a lobbyist, at the time, the youngest in New York State.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What a career. So Jonathan Lazier, tell us about your lobbying practice and what do you do?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for including me. I too am very honored. I am originally from the great state of Oklahoma, born and raised in a very small town of about 7,000 people on 188 acres with 4 ponds. And now I'm in a very tiny apartment in DC. But I've been here for quite some time. I originally came to DC in 2005 with $800 to my name. And as anyone could tell you, $800 doesn't go very far in a city like New York City or DC. But I've been with Stateside now for 5 years. And prior to that, I worked for an organization called Women in Government, many of which are some of Representative Mitchell's colleagues from the great state of Georgia, and many of those who you all lobby in your profession. At Stateside, we are the largest state and local government affairs firm nationally. So we help find lobbyists for our clients whenever they have an issue in the state. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good relationships and a good understanding of the lobbyists in state. Our job is never to replace the on the ground lobbyists, because those are the front lines to the issues that we all confront on a daily basis. We have a network of over 750 lobbyists nationally. We don't make a recommendation based off of a financial incentive on our part. We find people who are qualified, find people who can serve the client's interests without conflict. And through that, every day we're looking at new and innovative ways to try to engage people. So my dear friend, John Heath, from Turo reached out and asked if I could participate in this panel. And I don't think I could have pressed send quick enough. So I'm looking forward to today's chat. And I hope that I can connect with any of you all after this on any level. So looking forward to it, and thank you again.
Thank you so much. Demetrius Deloach from North Carolina. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, North Carolina's been in the news every day. Tell us a little bit about your practice and what you do.
Yes, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Demetrius Deloach, and I am a lobbyist here in Raleigh, North Carolina. It is my distinct honor to be in front of you all, and more than anything, it is my distinct honor to be a member of the National Black Professional Lobbyists Association. So I'm a lobbyist with APCO Worldwide. It is a public affairs company that literally is global. We are starting our government relations practice here in the South. We're in Raleigh, we're going to be the kind of sort of the hub, if you will. So we're looking to expand into the South. But I represent a number of clients. And before I get in this position at APCO, I was a lobbyist with the North Carolina League of Municipalities, representing all 552 cities and towns across the state of North Carolina. And before that, I was a lobbyist with a private law firm, Troutman Sanders, where I represented over 15 different private corporations straight out of graduate school. I am a proud graduate of my beloved HBCU, the Elizabeth City State University. I am also an attendant of North Carolina State University, where I started working with the legislature. And I also received my master's in public affairs from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I have been roaming the halls of the legislature for over 5 years, started at a very young age, and I have literally grown into this position. And so many of the legislators who used to be my mentors are now some of the people that I chase around the General Assembly. And it is just an honor, and I am just very much pleased with this practice, and very thankful to this organization because it is very much needed. And certainly glad to be in front of my panelists, my fellow panelists, and I certainly look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I want to make sure that this is a conversation that we're having. We want you to jump in. We're not going to go in any particular order, except that this first question, though, is directed to Representative Mitchell. One of the things that I find challenging is trying to figure out how legislators can help diversify the lobbying corps. Could you give us some of your thoughts on that? And then we want to go to the panelists on that question from your side. What legislators can do to help diversify the lobbying corps?
It's a very great question. And I say that because I find that caucuses, particularly Black caucuses who are in minority caucuses who are interested in this notion of diversity, are trying to address that issue. Very oftentimes we find folk in leadership position, when you mention diversity, sometimes it becomes a worrisome issue. Whereas when we talk about diversity, we really mean different thoughts coming together to find solutions. And it's so very important when you're trying to find solutions that you have different thoughts, different experiences, different opinions to fashion a solution. I will say it's incumbent on those legislators who are very interested in diversity and getting those different perspectives to form a cry, if you will, that they must insist on fair and equitable representation. That is one of the ways that it's going to do. To lobbyists, I would say to you that you should become expert in a particular area that you are lobbying in, so that you can become a resource. Now, Yolanda, if I go too long, which I'm prone to do, you kind of do something like that to let me know I'm going too long. I will tell you that no legislator, no matter how good that you think they are, can be an expert on every issue that comes before them. So as a lobbyist, if you can be expert in that particular interest that you are representing, and you can be honest, for instance, not only because, your mother told that was the right thing to do and you're going to heaven, but as a lobbyist, if you give me information that I rely on and I find that it is not the truth, then it would be difficult for me to rely on you ever again. So if you are consistently honest, you consistently bring great information, I find, Yolanda, that the best lobbyists are those who can represent both sides. What I mean by that is, when I was in law school, I took a class on argumentation, and the instructor gave us an argument that we had to prepare to argue. The rub was they didn't tell us which side we were going to have to argue until we got into the class. Now, the lesson was you never know what issue will come walking through your door, but more importantly than that, if I know your argument as good or better than you do, I have a better chance in winning. And I find that the better lobbyists will say, the other side is going to say A, B, and C. We think our position is better because of D, E, and F. And that way, when I hear the other side, I am prepared for that. But to specifically answer your question, it is incumbent on those legislators who are most interested in getting a diverse opinion to lead that cry. There was a former mayor of a big city, good friend of mine, that I visited once. And while we were visiting, some lobbyists came in representing a particular company. And I thought our meeting was going to be over. I was getting ready to say my bye. She said, no, you can stay. And the first question that she asked of this company is, look at our city. Our city is diverse as it is, and you have nobody representing your company with diverse the lobby here. And they said, no, we don't have it this time. You know what she said? Come back when you do. And
I wish that would happen, Representative Mitchell.
I found that to be extraordinary. I talked to her some weeks later, and she told me they came back with some.
Well, that's a great segue. I mean, does that, Tiffany, does that really ever happen? Has that ever happened with you?
So, I agree with everything you said, Representative Mitchell. And just to take a step back, I think that the expectation and definition of diversity has evolved. So 15, 20 years ago, diversity was simply solved by putting someone that looked like us in a room, and perhaps people felt happy and they felt satisfied. But now diversity is not just an individual or individuals, it's the diversity of opinion, of thought, of what you bring to the table. And so I've found that, my colleagues and I in New York have been most successful when elected officials have looked around in their meetings and said things like, I don't see anyone in this room that looks like they're from my community, or they even talk to anyone from my community. Because, you kind of walk a tightrope when you, as a legislator, make recommendations to individuals about who they should hire, and that could be taken in all kinds of ways. But surely we need representatives to set an expectation that individuals that look like us and think like us need to be a part of teams, because that's the only way that we really will get an equitable seat at the table, and we'll be able to negotiate on behalf of our clients and, in a lot of ways in our communities, to bring everyone together. A true lobbyist is successful when they can find a middle ground between something that works for the legislator and works for a client and the community in which whatever the project is located. So
that is such an important point. And you talked a couple of things I want to get back to. You talked about teams. You talked about sometimes the difficulty that legislators have Jonathan, do your companies that you recruit for or find companies for, do they have the same issue with diversity and wanting diversity? And Demetrius, I want to ask you next about this whole team concept and if it really works towards diversity. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, honestly, I think it requires everyone needs to have that on the top of their mind when it comes to this whole process. I think there are a couple of things that we have to really take into stock here, and we all have to be introspective of what we do and how we do it, and we need accountability, and you have to practice what you preach. And a company like ours, if we are going to be making recommendations on how other companies are, we too have to be, leading by example. And so we've had to have the hard conversations. Are we doing enough? And if we can't answer that question without doubt, then we're not. And so, when you're looking at this pool of individuals that you could put forth for recommendations for a company, you need to make sure that you are practicing what you're preaching. You need to make sure you're having an introspective look at yourself and the way that you're doing these own services to make sure that those who are providing the services for those potential or for the clients are too asking those same questions. And I think that it takes every single day to make that thought process, really to come to fruition.
Great. So Demetrius, one of the things that Tiffany mentioned is some of the lobbying companies get to this concept of diversity through teams. Is that an approach that you're familiar with, that maybe you guys use?
Yes, very much so. When you're on your team, literally you want to build a team that you can walk into any room and walk out winning with. So of course, here in North Carolina for a couple of years, we had a Republican supermajority. Sometimes you didn't see as much diversity as you do now. So now in North Carolina, as you said, we've been in the news a lot because a lot of our chambers are probably going to flip, and there's probably going to be a shift in power. So what you are seeing now is that some of these firms are starting to realize, hey, we don't have diversity. And of course, with 2020, diversity has become much more of a prevalent conversation when in previous times it may not have been so. So now you're see people say, hey, we need to bring on Democrats. Hey, we need to bring on Republicans. Hey, we need to bring on people of color, because you want to be able to walk into whomever, whenever there is an issue, you want to have someone to say, okay, we have somebody that can go talk to this legislator. We have someone that can go talk to the Black Caucus. We have someone that can literally diversify our thought as well, like Ms. Tiffany said, which is very important because, again, when I'm not an attorney, but of course, whenever I'm for a debate, I want to know ahead of time what my opponents may think or may say. So if I'm having something that is an issue that is more definitely that is more geared toward a certain demographic, I want to make sure that I have gone to that demographic to say, hey, here are my arguments, here are my points. What am I missing from this? And the only way that you get that is by having people that think differently than you and that look differently and look different than you do. And of course, not to even mention like the appearance that gives to you as well as your company, because it shows that you are forward looking. So previously, a few weeks ago, my colleagues and I went to a client who we were hoping to sign, and it was a white male and it was two Black males. We had a Republican, a Democrat, and I was the unaffiliated. So the very first thing that they even pointed out to us was, wow, you guys are very much diverse. And that was something that is something that is very, very important, to have a diverse team, because you win. Literally, there are so many arguments that you can win because you have that diverse thought process in whenever you walk into that room as well. And not to mention skill sets.
So that was so many points. I want to point out a couple of things. We just went through, I always call it 3 pandemics, certainly the coronavirus, but then we also went through this whole social justice pandemic. And then there's the education part. What is going to happen to our kids? Is there going to be a further education / economic gap as a result of the disproportionate effect on minority communities? That being said, what impact do you think these pandemics will have on this issue of diversity in the lobbying corps? Who wants to take that first? Representative Mitchell, you want to try it?
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. We are in unparalleled times. And I will say to you that major corporations do what major corporations do, and that is they wish to keep their market share. And I will tell you, these as a result of this civil unrest that we have, we're in a mood now where everyone loves diversity, and specifically Black folks at this time. I'll give you a perfect example. Amazon opened a distribution center in my district, and you're going to learn about this as a CRT member, Yolanda. Because I had done some things to get them some tax incentives and the like, they invited me to the ribbon cutting, to the ribbon, and their Amazon is such that they leave nothing to chance. About a week before the ribbon cutting, their government affairs folks called me to review a run of show. And before we got off the meeting, who should get on the call, the Zoom call, but Jeff Bezos, the president of Amazon.
Wow.
He made a mistake of asking me, now what can I do for you? And it was on then. I said, well, we'd love for you to be a corporate roundtable member at our highest level. Before I could get it all out my mouth, he said, done. I said, well, we've got some long-term initiatives that we would love for you to play a part in. He said, done. I said, well, we've got this initiative that we have, a long-term study, which is going to cost millions. We'd like to start it off with $1 million. He said, done. After I got off the call, I should have said, you know what? I should have asked him for 10% of Amazon stock. You know, you always continue to ask until they say no, and I failed that test. But I said all that to say that we are in the unique times, right, whereas we can get folks who would not ordinarily be interested in diversity issues now, because it's not only good for our society, it's not only good to stop some of the unrest, but it's good for business as well.
Great point. Listen, the chat is blowing up. One of the comments was you have to be your authentic self. And that goes all a part of that. But I want to continue on this path of this whole social justice idea, because when we go back to session, we don't know, what the numbers are going to be, and people in Florida are really nervous about what the numbers are going to be. What do you think the impact of this social justice and other pandemics are going to have on the diversity of the team? Tiffany, I see you at the edge of your seat. You want to go next?
I really hope that it has a positive impact. I feel like, we've watched our state legislatures diversify in leadership over the last decade, and that hasn't necessarily trickled down to what is the face of power in our industry. So I just want us to not just be at the table, but to have a real position of power at the table, because right, it's not enough to just hire one of us and bring us into the room just to be there to say, oh, look what we're doing. We have to be able to be in a position where we can actually influence, especially when it comes to the social unrest. We have to be able to offer up the recommendations that will actually get corporations to a place where they are, doing good and helping America get over this hump and move to the next stage that we need to be in.
I mean, you're right, helping America get over this hump. It's been distressing. It's been distressing, and someone close to the politics of it, we just know, I know you all know and feel it, because these elected officials and know the effect. Demetrius, I'm going to skip to you. What do you think about this social justice? Not saying that, I don't know I don't know the ages of everybody, but you look relatively young. So and we're getting things in the chat, like what advice would you have for young Black lobbyists? But more than that, with this social justice agenda, what are your thoughts?
Much like I really hope that this does bring about a positive effect. One thing that I will say, on my end, one thing I have seen is that a lot of my friends that do not look like me, both legislators and lobbyists, have come to me and said, can you help me understand what is happening and why is this happening. So one thing on our half that we have to be ready for is to have those difficult conversations. You know, one thing about APCO, I am very pleased with the fact that we have already had those difficult conversations. We had a declaration of inclusivity where everybody across the world signed on to Zoom at the same time and signed it. And really, it is on us to be able to have those difficult conversations, because a lot of the issues that a lot of communities have been feeling have been promulgated by this pandemic. So like here in North Carolina, let's look at the issue of broadband. I'm here in Raleigh, so I may have great broadband, but born and raised in Northeastern North Carolina, I barely had cell phone reception. So when you look at TV and you see those kids that don't have the ability to do their homework on a laptop, or because they don't have internet access, that was me growing up. All of a sudden, everybody's like, wow, we did not know that you did not have Wi-Fi in that part of the state. How can we help? So a lot of the legislators now are starting to see, like, yes, these are issues that we are seeing. Yes, we love our law enforcement, but we do see that there are some issues with that. And, you know, some of the people really just want to have those conversations of trying to understand it. And I really do applaud those individuals that will really take a step away from, you know, their lovely lifestyle. Some of my legislators I love dearly. They're great people. They live in multi-million-dollar houses. They live a fabulous lifestyle. But it really does warm my heart very good when they come down from their level. Want to understand this issue better so that I can be a better legislator, so that I can help you and fix this situation. Because again, many hands make light work. That is the one thing that we learned in Kappa. And of course, I'm a brother Kappa Alpha Psi. So, you know, that's one thing that I will say. Just had to say it. So that is one thing we learned. Many hands make light work. So if I tell this legislator who happens to be the Republican majority leader what this issue is, why is this way, I answer his questions. When the issue comes up in the caucus, he is my mouthpiece. And of course, if I do the same thing on the Senate side, the same thing happens. And of course, I may not have to do it as much within the Democratic caucus, but again, you have to have those conversations. These questions have to be answered because, of course, without equitable discussion, we cannot hope for equitable solution. So it has to be where we can have these hard conversations. And I think I saw that question where you asked about the young man, what advice? My advice to you is, and Miss Yolanda, I'm just going to spoil it for everybody. I am 27, just turned 27 in August. As a young Black lobbyist, I would say go for every single opportunity that you can and that you want to do so. Because honestly, coming from Northeastern North Carolina, a first-generation college kid, I never thought I would do this or be able to do this, but this has always been my dream. So never let anyone tell you what you can and cannot do. The sky is the limit, and whatever it is that you want to put your mind to, you have the ability to do so. And literally go for every opportunity, network every single chance that you get on LinkedIn, add people, message them, be an extrovert, literally. And again, go for every opportunity because nothing beats a failure but a try.
Great.
It's better to get told no than to say I didn't go for it. So yes, ma'am.
Great advice. So I hate to tell you that works even when you're older than 27. So Jonathan, these companies are going to come to you, to Demetrius' point, and say, tell me how we fix this thing with social justice. How should our team look in light of these things that are going on, these pandemics are going on? What would be your advice at that point?
So let me just say something personal here for my own self that I think that these pandemics have on what I hope will be a positive outcome for the diversity. I grew up in Oklahoma in a family that was surrounded by Black people my entire life. My sister, married a Black man. I had a Black nephew. My dad's best friends were all Black. It was never a thing for me. But what it was, though, was a comfort zone that I probably had never got out of until this pandemic made me realize that I got to step up and I have to, again, take introspective and ask for accountability of my own actions, but also those who I'm paid to advise for. John here, I've had many conversations with him about, before this had come about, what am I doing and what can I be doing more of? And one of those things was Darielle, who is my intern this semester and is joining us on this call. She and I was amazed by the first conversation that I had with her. And I hung up and I went to one of my colleagues. I said, she's going to be the president of the United States one of these days. I said, without a doubt, without even actually meeting her in person. And then once she actually joined us at stateside, I realized that, you know what, I tried to bring her in a welcoming environment, but did I make it clear that she's welcome? So I sat her down at the table, and I literally, when we were in the office, I said, you need to recognize the fact that you deserve to be sitting at this table, that you deserve a seat at this table just as much as I do. And you need to make sure that you are always asking for that seat at the table if it's not presented for you. And so I think that it has to take really hard introspective looks at yourself to make sure you're doing that. When it comes to companies that are advising, I think that you have to look at the lay of the land and making sure that when you're working in a state like this. In Hawaii, I tell people all the time, don't parachute in there and expect to get something done, because they don't like the mainlanders coming in and telling them what to do with their own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
You should apply that whole method across the board. How are we going to make sure that we are doing our best part here? And it's got to be those really uncomfortable conversations, like Demetrius said. You know, I feel so honored to be on this panel today, but I realize even with being a participant on this, I have my own work that I have to continue to do every single day.
Great. I mean,
That's powerful.
that is powerful, Jonathan. I appreciate that. So I guess one of the things that I wonder if companies really understand that diversity makes sense, CENTS. In other words, does it really make sense in terms of money? One of the chat in the chat room, they talked about unintended consequences of bad policy because you don't have diversity. But that being said, in light of this pandemic, at the end of the day, we have light bills to pay, right? We have to make it make sense, CENTS. So tell me about your business development plan in light of all of this pandemic. What are you doing differently? Or what should you be doing differently? If we talk to Representative Mitchell, we're going to have Representative Mitchell, we're going to have you at the end of this one. Tiffany, what are you doing for business development?
So
let me just say, Representative Mitchell, you tell me if that works. What we propose, if it works. Go ahead, Tiffany.
I think that it's maybe a two-pronged, three-pronged approach, because we're in a state now where we cannot necessarily leave our homes. So we have to keep our ears to the ground to figure out on a day-to-day basis, what are the issues as they are emerging, and who are the key players that are involved with these issues. And we have to go to where we might be able to engage with decision makers in this during this time. It's not as easy as it used to be, where you could maybe go up to your state capitol or go to your local city hall and interact with people, you know, on a one-to-one basis. Now you sort of have to seek people out, remind people where you are and what you're doing. I think involving ourselves in panel discussions such as this, using social media and the internet to promote yourself. One of the things that I wanted to say after Demetrius last spoke was that you are your biggest advocate. So in this time, we have to do as great of a job as possible of self-promotion, because if you don't self-promote, no one will know how great you are. And I think that there is force in alliances. So, you know, all of your good deeds and relationships that you have will pay off during this time, because people remember the hard work and the dedication that they've seen over the time, over your career, and they will call upon you if they have opportunities. So I think that communication is key during this time, utilizing social media and just making sure that you're staying on top of the issues in real time and putting yourself in environments where decisions are being made.
Great point. So Jonathan, how are you going to do or change your business development in light of all of this?
So the days where I used to get on a plane and fly a lot are no longer for the foreseeable future. I think where I would have had dinner with many of the people on this phone or on this webinar, or meeting with the legislators in the state, or trying to connect with people at the different organizations, are long gone for now. So I remember when we left the office for the last time, and I, not knowing that I wasn't going to be back for, many months later. And I worked from my ironing board in my kitchen for 3 solid months. And so what does that mean? Going from an in-person, just as Tiffany said, to navigating from a keyboard. I have made it a critical part of what I do is making sure I'm talking. Today I was out on a walk this morning at 8:00 and someone popped up in my head. I called that person right away just to tell them I had been thinking about them. And I believe that we have to make an extra practice of that, engaging people, whether it be via text or email. I remember Tiffany, I think it was Leader Stuart Cousins who was like, I don't want to do another Zoom. It's like, so how do you got to figure out how do you connect with that person, what works for them and what doesn't. So give them the option of doing that. When you send an email, say, I'd love the opportunity to either jump on a Zoom or a call, whatever works best for you. And so, we had to think really creatively about the work that we are doing. And so we created this COVID coverage report that so many companies that we had never engaged with before were seeking us out. And we were, giving these ratings to these cities and states on the reopening. And because a big global company still has a genuine interest in making sure that their employees can either go into the office or the employees' children can go to school, that bubbles up and it talks in. And if you're talking about CENTS, it translates into that. So you have to think about what you need to give those people making the decision, the resources and the tools. And so we've created this. This is a whole new work stream that we would have never had. And yeah, don't get me wrong. We've lost clients who due to the pandemic, but I can say for sure that we have gained so many more, and we're very fortunate for that.
So Jonathan, before we go to Demetrius, we've had a couple of people that want to know how to get in contact with you. I didn't know that people like Stateside exist, so I will make a shameless plug and say, let's connect after.
Yeah, I would love nothing more than to connect with everyone here. Really, it is part of who I am. You can email me. It's JB as in boy L, JBL at stateside.com. And let's set up an opportunity to talk, because we support companies. And what we need to do is making sure that Tiffany and Demetrius are on our list to make sure that when we have an issue in our state, in a state like where they're from, we can reach out to them. So if you have
and Florida.
And Florida. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about my fellow panels. Of course. Speaking of Florida, I was taught the hard way by Senator Arthenia Joyner.
Oh, now you go. There you go.
What? And if you know Arthenia, you either like she or she doesn't like you. She loved me and she taught me the way to go. So I appreciate it. So if there are people here that are in-state lobbyists, let's connect, because I want to be able to help you all get on this. So this is a great opportunity so we can make recommendations and throw some opportunities your way.
Okay, Demetrius, what do you think?
All of that sounds excellent, and I'm just glad that I was able to connect with Jonathan. But one of the things that we're doing here at APCO to address the diversity, and honestly, I've only been with APCO for a little bit over a month now, but they have this entire diversity thing on lock. When I came in, they have this thing that is called Accelerating What's Right, which is a tangible plan that all of the leaders in our Raleigh office and majority in our DC office have come up with, that talks about how they're going to go about bringing on diversity. Then one particular part of the plan that I'm very excited about, and majority of it deals with, the community or whatever. But the part that I'm excited about is there's a portion that is a big chunk of the project that talks about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is something that they have paired people to work with on that. And one of the things that I'm particularly proud of is the portion that deals with actually contacting the historically Black colleges and universities. In North Carolina, we have the highest number of historically Black colleges and universities in the entire country. coming second to Alabama, I believe. But also, we have the largest HBCU in the country, which is North Carolina A&T, which is right down the street. So all of these are options for you to be able to do so. And again, we can increase diversity. We have to have these difficult conversations. We have to have tangible plans that literally that have goals to them that are attainable. And once you start doing that, then the ball can get rolling. And of course, some of it may be trial and error. But again, nothing is begun without a conversation and starting it first. So, and for myself and Miss Yolanda, if I may, for that young person that asked for advice, once you get to where you are, reach back and grab somebody else and bring them with you. The biggest thing that I do for myself, and I take very much good pride in it, is I lift as I climb. So I'm not going to continue to accelerate and go up the ladder and not bring somebody or as many people as I can with me. So whenever you make these connections, like with Jonathan, whenever you get close with the legislator or somebody that is of power or other lobbying firms, reach out to some individual and say, hey, come with me so I can introduce you to this partner. Come with me so I can introduce you to the majority leader, the appropriations chairman, the speaker, President Pro Tem. And that is how you begin to do that, because you start to put more diverse people in front of them. When you start to put more diverse people in front of them and they start to see like, hey, they have beyond the capacity to do what I need them to do, I'll reach out to them. That is how you start to integrate more people into this field as well. So yes.
So listen, I have to make a commercial announcement. You are watching this, and if you're watching this and you're not a member of NBPLA, just know that very soon you will be locked out, and we will have a lot of what we plan to have, a lot of programs exclusively for members, because, you know, nothing's free. And my dad was a pastor, and he would tell you that not even salvation is free. You have to pay for it. You have to give up something. So we want to encourage you to become a member. You can do that online. I see that Jerry just joined. That's great. We want to encourage you to do that. You need the camaraderie. You need the companionship. You need the allies. So listen, I want to get back to this idea of diversity in the lobbying corps. It dawned upon me that as we have even more diversity in the lobbying corps and a part of issues, that the influencers may even change. What do you think how do you think the conversation in the legislature will change as a result of these pandemics that we talked about? Will the Black Caucus become more powerful? Will the women become more powerful? Will they be looking to have their voices? What do you think? Because remember, with the pandemic, we're not going to be able to have those big rallies that we had up in at the state capitals. What do you think, Tiffany?
So I think that having an advocacy base of real supporters of any issue is more important than ever before. Long gone are the days of negotiating a deal in a back room. I think that legislators all over the country want to know, when you come to them with an issue, who is supportive of this issue? Who amongst my constituency is supportive of what you're talking about? And you have to produce that. It's harder and harder because we're in a time now, like you said, where we can't rally people, we can't gather people together, we can't have community engagement type events. But it's more important than ever before that lobbying is connected to people. And I think that because of the manner in which many of us have come up in the political world, we have that connection to the people in a way that's different than a lot of our colleagues. And so we have that to offer. And in some instances, it may be more important than a relationship with the governor, than having the governor's telephone number, right? Because even the governor of any state wants to know, well, how does X advocacy group feel about this? Because no one wants to feel the wrath of a rally that can produce thousands of people within an hour through social media.
Right. Great point. Great point. Let's talk about those influencers. Demetrius, what kind of influencers do you see, or new influencers do you see as a result of the situation that the country is in right now?
Definitely. So I feel as if a lot more advocacy groups are going to have a seat at the table, because a lot of states now are starting to look at establishing roundtable discussions about issues in order to produce better legislation. Also, you're starting to see that people are, again, they're starting to see that some of these issues are very prevalent in their communities, even though it may not be affecting them. However, if it's not affecting them, it's probably going to affect their ability to be an effective legislator. So one of the things that I want to see, or that I believe I'm going to see, is more people at the table. I do believe our Black caucus here in North Carolina is going to be much more powerful than it has been, because again, we went from having a very much supermajority in both chambers to now that people are actually scared that one of the chambers is going to flip very soon, and possibly in 2 weeks. So you're starting to see where people are starting to get conversations are starting to get had where people are trying to connect with others, trying to build relationships, trying to have lunch or more Zoom meetings, and you're starting to see them at some of their campaign events and things of that caliber. So you're going to see a lot more influencers of the caliber of younger generation, because some of these issues are issues that we know about, specifically like with broadband and dealing with some of the technological difficulties and things of that caliber. You're going to start seeing more advocates come from across the board professions, because of the fact that, again, the pandemic has affected every single profession that you can think of. More people are going to need money. More people want legislation pertaining to certain issues. So you're going to see a host of new issues. And as lobbyists, our biggest thing is to maybe connect with these people to say, hey, in order for you to be effective, this is how you should probably go about doing that. Because again, all of us on this call, we have the ability to know about what it takes to be an effective lobbyist. However, the person that is coming in may not know that. So we may have to share that information that we have with them in order for them to be effective to get their point across to legislators. And we may have to make some introductions for these new people. So yes.
Jonathan, who are the new influencers, you think?
I recall this conversation I had one time with someone that, they couldn't figure out why this person was doing this or and taking this action. And I said to him, I said, when people have little power, they will do anything they can to hold on to that little power that they do have. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing that now. And this is a force to be reckoned with. And there's accountability that people are seeking. And there should be more seats at the table. It's been long time coming. And I think too that these new influencers, and I have to make a shameless plug here, that I've got one of my other former interns on, Preston Ross, who's joined us as well. And you've got to make sure that you're putting them up forth. You got to, like just what Demetrius said earlier about reaching back. I grew up in a trailer house where we tied our front door locked with a bar nail and a tube sock and a kitchen table chair. And I'm fortunate to be in a position that I am now, not by sheer luck, but because of the work that I got there, but the people who turned back and gave me a hand up, just like Demetrius said earlier. So you got to make sure that you're giving those opportunities to others to make sure that they can then turn back around. So I think we're looking at a whole new wave of leadership coming in, and it's about time.
Mm-hmm. So listen, Jonathan, somebody said you better testify. I love it. I love it. Listen, I guess one of the things that I was thinking, there are going to be some big winners as a result of this change, and there are going to be some big losers, right?
Yeah.
So here you go. Who are the biggest winners and who are the biggest losers? Your prediction for this upcoming legislative session in either in your states or across the country. Anybody want to take a stab first? Biggest winner?
The biggest winner are those who get real uncomfortable with themselves to force change. Yeah. Those are the big winners. When you are comfortable, you are not learning. Those are the losers, those who become comfortable in themselves and in what they're doing. I think that there is a new day on us. And I think that those who refuse to change or to accept that everyone deserves an opportunity are the losers. And it's going to happen in 12 days. We're going to see. There's a reckoning. And I hope people hear how loud that is.
Wow. Reckoning. That sounds, I agree with that. I hope so. Tiffany, biggest winners, biggest losers.
I agree with everything you said, Jonathan. I think the biggest winners that we'll see as we approach the upcoming legislative session are those who stand in their truth. I think that there have been so many groups of people who've been silenced and sidelined in our individual states and throughout America who have now decided they will no longer accept that. And so as a result, we all have to change the way that we do business in order to make sure that we are not allowing our clients and others to sideline what have been marginalized groups of people in America. And so I'm hoping we'll see that beginning in the next 12 days and then going forth into 2021.
Great answer. Demetrius, biggest winner, loser.
Yes, ma'am. I would say the biggest winner are those that have had the difficult conversations and those who have brought on diversity really onto their teams. Because with North Carolina, we are in a toss-up. We know everybody just keeps on saying the way the country is going to go is going to be on how North Carolina goes. So for those law firms and those lobbying practices that have brought on, Democrats, that have brought on Republicans, unaffiliated, Black, white, male, and female, those that have the ability to be able to walk into any room, those are going to be the biggest winners. Not even a question. Because honestly, in North Carolina, we're predicting that one of our chambers is going to flip. We know that our U.S. Senator, he's one of the people that is up for a very competitive race right now. So many of our races are competitive because of the redistricting and because of other elements here in North Carolina. So the biggest winner, if you have one of everybody on your team, you could walk into any room and you can have influence over whatever legislator without regard to partisan affiliation. That is the biggest winner. The biggest loser is always going to be the person that with the closed mindset that is still trying to do things the old traditional way without recognizing that times have changed. This is a new day. And, and shout out to one of my affiliates that I still work with, the North Carolina Black Municipal Elected Officials, North Carolina BMO. I have told them before, and we always have this argument, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. That is my practice, and that is what I say every day when I walk into the General Assembly. So if you want to be on the winning team, you need somebody to be able to walk into any room, be at any table, and not just be at the table, but to be able to effectively articulate the issue and to be able to articulate what needs to happen in order for everybody to win.
All right, great. Johnny Tillett say you represent North Carolina. All right.
That is my mentor. Shout out to you, Johnny.
Johnny, good to see you. Listen, we are nearing the end, and so we want to make sure that if you have any other burning questions that you get them in, and we're going to wind this up. I can tell you that as a lobbyist for 21 now years, I came in and I've always worked in a situation where there's been a supermajority. Well, we started out close and then it got bigger and bigger. And I think that the big winners are going to be the people of this country that are finally going to have an opportunity to have their voice heard and it not matter how much money somebody, how many checks they've written. I believe that passion trumps politics, no pun intended, every day, every day. And so the caucuses, as you guys have mentioned, I think will be more powerful than ever. But saying that, we have to close. So I want you to give us your predictions as to how you think the sessions are going to turn out. Demetrius talked about, it's a possibility that his state will flip. I'm not going to ask you about the president. I won't do that. But we're talking about just state legislatures. We had a couple of people who talked about they may enter the workforce. We have a former legislator wants to know about some advice. That question came in terms of getting into the fold. We have some new members that are coming in, new legislators that are coming in. What are they coming into? So we just want to get your parting thoughts, parting predictions, and who wants to go first? I'm going to always let the ladies go first. Tiffany, I just want to tell you how excited I am for you. I know how lonely it is as an African-American woman lobbyist working on both sides of the aisle with people making judgments about you that may not be true. So I congratulate you, and certainly because you have your own shop, which is also very, very unusual. So as you close out, I just want to let you know how excited I am for you. Go ahead, Tiffany.
I really appreciate that. it has been these past 10 years that I've been in business for myself. It has been challenging, but it has also been the greatest dream of my life. And I think moving into this next year, New York is a strongly Democratic state, but still has been largely influenced by, special interests. But I think that now we are all having to take into consideration what the people want, and I think that that's good. It makes us all more accountable for our work every day. So I think that we are all going to need to lean upon our relationships, but I think that there are only good things that can happen after all that we've been through for the last several years. I believe that we've hit rock bottom, and I hope there's no place else to go but up.
Great, thank you. Jonathan, what say you?
Well, fortunately for the four of us, the sessions, people are gonna need more people like us. So there is benefit there. There is so much uncertainty in all 50 states, and Tiffany in New York City at the council there, it is unprecedented times. So I think that each state, you're going to see these wild, wild west states that are going to just do whatever they want. But it will be a difficult challenge for those. We have clients who are on travel restriction through July of 2021. Yet they are expected to achieve the same goals that they had before the pandemic started. And so they're going to very much have to lean on the front line, which is you all, and making sure that they have the ability to reach a leader via text, because you can't pull them out in the hall or get them at dinner or over drinks like you did before. You're going to have to look to firms like us at the national level to get a pulse on what's happening at a 50-state perspective. You're going to have to understand the differences between being able to testify in person and testifying online and virtually, because we all know that some people don't do well on video, but yet you're still having to achieve your goal. So yeah, I think that the those who can find their resources through organizations like this, their in-state council, their national strategists, if they are able to participate in a trade association of some sort, all of those are set to benefit. And then you're looking around, you're like, well, I don't have any of that. I say to you, just start making phone calls, doing everything you possibly can to get out there and get in front of people. And before I go, I just want to say that if you all have a young staffer in one of your states that you've worked with that have worked in the legislature and they want to move to Washington, D.C., please connect them to us. So we hire a lot of our associates in our regulatory and our legislative practice come from the states. And so if you have someone who's ready to get to DC and get their fresh start, give them my contact information and we'll get them an interview and hopefully get them an opportunity. And before I go, thank you so much for all this again. I really appreciate any and all opportunity to engage like this. It makes me have to learn more. And Demetrius and Tiffany and Yolanda, I very much look forward to connecting with each of you offline.
All right, be careful what you ask for. Demetrius.
So, of course, they saved me for last. North Carolina is one of the most unpredictable states because it can go either way. Of course, with the recently gerrymandered districts, a lot of our districts are no longer safe, per se. So they're looking, I think in the Senate, they only need to flip maybe 3 or 4 seats, whereas in the House, they need to flip a little bit more. So it's very unpredictable right now. However, I can assure you that as long as you are being an effective lobbyist and you have created those relationships, because like Jonathan said, there is no more of the world, at least right now, where I can pull you out into the hallway out of committee. Now it's all about the relationship I have with you. Do I have a good enough relationship with you where I can call you on your phone? Do I have a good enough relationship with your legislative assistant so that I know where you are in the event that I need to, if you're in the city and I need to just be walking down the street and I see you? You know, it's all about being able to have those effective relationships right now. And of course, you know, I would tell any person that is in this game right now of lobbying, make sure you have effective relationships, because one thing about me, I get along with everyone, regardless of your political affiliation. That's why whichever way the pendulum swings, I'm not very much too worried because I know the relationships and my demeanor and my reputation will always precede me. And that means I'll be welcome in roughly any office that I walk into, which is very, very important. And to everyone that is looking to get into this game, I would say go ahead and start making those relationships. You know, use your LinkedIn profile. It's there for a reason. It is literally the professional Facebook of the world. I can't tell you how many people I've added. As soon as I was on the flyer, the first thing I did was add Jonathan. Like literally. So, you know,
You added me too.
Yeah. And Miss Yolanda, Miss Tiffany, Miss Terry, everybody. So again, use the assets that you have. You know, there's no point in you walking around with a cell phone in your hand every day and you're not using it to make those relationships. Because while I may not be able to take a legislator out to lunch, what I can do is email that legislator, build a professional working relationship with them via phone, and just get it to the point where I can just check on them and say, how are you? Are you okay? Again, these are unprecedented times. We have the ability to use this however that we choose to, but I would implore everyone to diversify your team. Make it so that you are good to walk in whatever room that you may want to, whatever committee that you may want to, on whatever issue that you may want to. Diversify your team, diversify your knowledge. People don't necessarily have to come from political science backgrounds like myself did, but you may need somebody that is good at energy. You may need somebody that's good at public affairs or that's good at marketing or even just communication and journalism. Like, there are so many avenues that can make you to be an effective person in this field. And it all just starts with diversifying your team and bringing up certain people who may not, you know, look like you or who may be a little bit different. Bring them into the room and see what they can do. I guarantee you, the more diverse you are on your team, the more success you will likely have.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that close. Listen, I have to give a shout out to our founders, John Heath, Gregory Jones. They are just so sad that they're not on today, but we will get them later. And then go ahead and sign up and become a member. You have no idea how much you need this. So we encourage you to do that. You can do that online. And then finally, make sure you vote. Make sure you vote. Make sure everyone in your family is voting. And we've started early voting here in Florida, and there have been lines in spite of the rain. And the last thing that I would tell you is something that a good friend of mine tells me all the time. It does not matter what people say or think about you. What matters is what you think or say about yourself. So with that, we just close out today and just look forward to seeing you as a member of NBPLA. So long, everybody.